You're listening to the Public Finance Live podcast series, brought to you by the PF editorial team, directly from SIPFA's 2025 annual conference in Birmingham, England. You can listen to our full series of episodes on the big issues being discussed at this year's conference by searching PF Live wherever you get your podcasts, or by visiting the podcast section of the Public Finance website.
Hello, I'm Martin Reed at Public Finance Magazine, and I'm your host for this, the last Public Finance Live podcast of the 2025 event. For this one, the theme is that with discussions around the proposals for local government reorganisation in two-tier areas well underway, this episode is exploring what organisations can practically be doing now in terms of getting prepared for what's to come, even before final proposals are confirmed. To help me to do that, I'm joined by Simon Alsop, Managing Consultant with SIPFA, and Alex Bedford, Customer and Partnership Manager at Zurich Municipal, who are also our sponsors for this episode. So, Simon, Alex, welcome.
Big values.
It's the last few minutes of the event. How have you found it thus far? What have you enjoyed?
After you, Alex.
So this is a really key event for us and a key partnership with SIPFA, with our local government customers particularly. And as always, the engagement's been high, some really good conversations. Actually, there are still some people out there who don't know what we do. So there's still value for us with brand awareness and just bringing what we do directly to our customer base.
Okay. Yeah, and I think same thing really. It's really been good to reconnect and sort of working with Zurich actually reminded me of some of my best workshops with Zurich back in I was working probation services, which I always enjoyed. But it is that opportunity to not just meet with colleagues as some of my sort of RG colleagues who we work with, but also former sort of clients, former councils that I worked at as well. And my old the SIPFA student lecturer as well from 30 years ago, which I'm not sure whether he felt older or myself actually, but so it's nice to see him after 30 years as well. So,
excellent.
No, it's just that chance to sort of spend some committed time and time at the office to make those connections again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's crack on. For the next 15 minutes or so, we'll be talking about this particular issue, of course. We mentioned in the intro that the final proposals are yet to come. I know, Simon, it was part of the conversation you were involved in on the panel yesterday. Can you just recap for us exactly where we are at the moment and any expected timeframes?
Yes, I mean this process probably seems like it's been running for a long time already, but interim proposals have got into MHCLG, which there's feedback on 2 or 3 weeks ago now. So councils are now at the stage of developing their preferred proposals, and they use the term proposals in MHCLG. Are very carefully use the term proposals rather than business bases at the moment, because they're still recognised as work to do in narrowing those options down. So as I understand it, those proposals are being worked up. Obviously I6 is the first area that's due to go sort of September. So that's the first one that I think the minister announced last week that they'd narrowed down to preferred proposals. And then the second wave and then the third wave come after that, which sort of into the autumn, into sort of early end of November time as well. So with summer in there, there's not long to sort of get some of those things firmed up. Hence why, the question about what can people be doing now.
Absolutely. Have messages, get ready as much as you can. Absolutely. So obviously it's going to be challenging, not least because obviously there's the day job to do. But this is quite transformational change for a lot of people. And there's an element, I'm sure, of caution, of uncertainty and mild fear and panic as well. Is it something you expect that they need real support with? Is there sufficient support being given?
I think that as you say, there's the other challenge as well with the day job. There's lots of government consultations laid over the top of the reorganisation process around funding, around governance, cabinet models as well. I think I was just announced even yesterday that we're changing some of the governance structures as well. So I think it is a real challenge. There are some really good people out there who've been through this before, who are obviously looking at how they can help the sector. And this, certainly from my point of view at SIPFA, it's got to be a sector support effort. And MHCLG are very clear that they're looking for the sector to provide that support. They're not looking for the glossy business cases. They want that sort of
A gritty business.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, the detail and a lot of it, the data, also the analysis is going to be key to this. Of course, politics will play a massive part, as we know. So I think there is going to be the need for the professional advice. There's going to be the need for discussion around what are the risks, what are the opportunities, or what risk appetite looks like, and what people are prepared to accept as good enough around some of those early discussions, because there will have to be some assumptions made, and those assumptions are going to be really important in submitting those proposals and then not being a hostage to what you potentially sort of submitted and proposed, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously forums like the panel session you had yesterday, which there was a lot of people showing interest, are great, but are there enough of them? I mean, obviously, it's you think people will really want to share their experience or share their ideas at this moment?
Yeah, I think there are. I think it's knowing, and there's sort of chatting about which ones do you enjoy, because there's LJ ones, there's SIPFA ones, there's obviously partners who are working out there with councils at the moment, and all this is actually being collected in the local government resource hub by the LJ, which we're a part of. So I think there is a lot of guidance out there, but the reality is that you're only really going to know it through living it, and perhaps want to call on those people who've been through recently, like Cumbria, like Bilworth, Christchurch, Bull, North Yorkshire as well. That is talking to those people, like we heard yesterday from Pam Duke at Cumbria, about what are those things that aren't written in the manual or in the guide that perhaps you don't expect to happen. And I think that's where you can only go so far with referring back to some of those guidance stuff from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can well imagine there is a significant degree of natural caution amongst people.
Yes, yeah, there is, and I think, but equally, there's lots of people who probably got the transferable skills from dealing with particular financial challenges. I mean, we were talking about earlier around even civil contingency planning and actually using some of the lessons learned from dealing with natural disasters to get that impetus and that focus. And are there lessons that you can take from doing the modelling, doing these sort of real life scenarios, exercises, with members, with your leadership team, which again, just allow you to bring together that common understanding of risk, of what's tolerable.
Do you think that the right type of person involved? I mean, do we have the right skill sets in and amongst the councils to make the best case decision, when obviously there's so many, to use that horrible expression, so many moving parts in a conversation?
Yeah, I think that it's discussed yesterday, they can't underestimate the role of
Be advised that the exhibition is now closed to diets. Thank you.
I suspect they'll edit that bit out.
Did you get that? Sorry, not at all. You can't underestimate the role of a good program manager, over some of this work, and actually what does getting those structures right from the start with your chief execs, with your director of finance. But I think, that importance of good data, knowing where you are around due diligence when it comes to your asset registers, comes to your sort of contractual commitments, and what your establishment looks like. It might sound very simple, but there's so many councils we work with, you just don't know what their establishment is. So actually, you don't know what the demand looks like for social care going forward. Some of those things you can be doing now that independent of whether you're going to be going through reorganisation or not.
Yes, which I understand is a perfectly logical theme. Alex, if I can bring you in as this point, what's your perspective?
So in terms of the moving from business as usual through the transformation into that transition period as the new authorities are bedding in, whatever they end up looking like, I think the key thing is for us is that a lot of what Simon's been talking about, risk tools and your risk management architecture and resources and structure needs to be aligned to that. So how do we stay safe and resilient with appropriate protections in place through business as usual, because those councils are still delivering services to those communities up until 2028. At the same time, building a new organisation that has that resilience in it by design. That's the sort of the overarching theme for us. And when I say resilience, for us, risk and insurance form really key pillars of resilience, but sometimes that's not surfaced until an event happens rather than being put in place properly before it happens. On the people and skills point, that's something, again, we're talking So actually, there's a bit of an overlap, but the alarm conference happened on Monday and Tuesday this week. So local authority risk managers, and this was a topic there, as every other conference, really started to think about. So a county council risk manager has a different skill set, potentially, certainly has been managing different set of risk exposures to a district council. They deliver different services. So when you are aggregating into these new authorities, what skills do you actually need your risk resource, because we wouldn't suggest just having a risk manager. What skills do you need? Do they sit in your current organisations? How can you cross-fertilise? What do you need to develop? Where are they going to sit in the organisational structure? That understanding of risk, keeping it independent. And as you say, really great programme managers coming in, actually really great risk manager, helps on that steering board almost. We would love to see the risk resource have that voice. And risk management tools. So I used to be a local authority risk manager at Swindon. And what we're good at is actually some of the soft skills stuff. You see the outputs in terms of the risk documentation, but bringing disparate views into the room, getting to come to a conclusion about priority, really key risks. So lots and lots of things coming at us. Which of these are priority? Running scenario modelling, horizon scanning. One of the things that was striking me as you were talking is risk is forward-looking by definition. You can use previous data, but it is forward-looking. And over the next 3 years, whilst the organisations will be transforming, so will the landscape in which they're operating more generally through wider public sector reform, different risk actors coming in. So, yeah, having that really at the centre of what you're doing would be great.
It's an interesting requirement, isn't it? From a professional point of view, it's that ability to do the natural risk assessment, have that mindset, but also those people skills, those soft skills. Is that a relatively new mix?
I think so. It's become certainly more important. There's much more focus within the sector on it. And from our point of view, the focus of risk management, it's evolved like a lot of professional skills. The focus of risk management previously was how do we stop risks occurring? It was how do we stop them occurring or minimise impacts if they do occur. And it's really moved, reference to civil contingencies. Preparedness is everything, which is why we're talking about this. So, as I say, there is an awful lot that risk managers and through them insurance managers, if they're different, could be doing to gather data on what is the insurable risk profile of our current organisations. How might that look at the moment, whilst you haven't got final proposals, you've got some ideas out there. You can start to do some data modelling with that or just start trying to gather the data, because we all know a lot of these organisations have been around for a long time, and you might not actually have some of the data. It's been lost over with various internal reorganisations. So, yeah, getting a really clear idea of your risk profile as a whole that then can be cut is one of the things that could be done and could inform, actually, which is therefore the best option. What's the risk profile going to look like?
So, yeah, I mean, this is very interesting to me because and again, going back to your session yesterday, it was all about this is what you can do now. Do this now because it'll take the pressure off you as much as possible. But of course, there is the capacity issue, isn't there? So how do you prioritise when it's such a significant and obviously career-changing body of work that you're about to undertake?
Yeah, I think, getting those consistent understanding, as I mentioned earlier, but actually rather than doing things 5 times with 5 different formats, agree up front what does a consistent data set look like. Can you use the templates? And we mentioned yesterday the base template we got around collecting some of the financial information that might go in the proposal, or if this case, you identifying who the lead authority might be for that. So some of the better examples we've seen is where across an area, counties and districts have worked together, and actually they've identified a lead for doing that due diligence piece on the balance sheets, or they've identified a lead for workforce planning, and actually been quite recognise that they can't do this within their individual councils, or even 2 or 3 councils who might want to come together, even if that's where it might end in the future. So I think that sort of being realistic about actually just because you're putting out consistent information now doesn't mean you're compromising any future proposals. It's the best way of using the resource at the moment to get there. So
Is that an easy mindset to get into?
It's not, because everybody will have their preferred options, but I think the reality is that actually that's the only way that you're going to get something that will stand some scrutiny from MHCLG's perspective. And actually, if you can do that now, you're not getting into that back and forth in the later stages of a business case or a proposal, which distracts from probably what you're trying to get across in terms of the benefits of a proposal.
Sure. Alex, from your point of view, I think from a purely Zurich point of view, this must be a very interesting time because there's resources to allocate to support, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously we are in insurance. Our core product is insurance to the local government sector. And there'll be other suppliers out there who are providing other products. And one of the key things that I'm not sure has been thought about yet is that in 2028, we're going to have X number of entirely new local authorities all coming out, potentially asking for the market to respond to what they need to underpin their resilience, the insurance products they need, potentially with incomplete data, potentially with a significant risk profile attached in terms of uncertainty, because these organisations aren't going to be perfect from day one. So, yeah, we as an insurance sector are thinking about how are we going to respond, because we want to be there to support. As I said, I mean, insurance is an absolutely critical part of resilience. Absolutely. If you have an event, your insurance policy kicks in, but how does it kick in? To what extent? What support do you get underneath that? That all depends on what we've been asked to provide in the first place. So presenting what you need to market. So yeah, that 2028 sort of bubble where we're going to get a lot out, or are we? That it's that kind of conversation now that needs to come in. You're going to have a number of contracts, and that's the procurement side of all of this is really interesting. Again, you've got not massive procurement teams often now in these, again, existing authorities who will be having to go through that thought process, not just for insurance, but for all contracts. What are all the contracts? They're probably not all look the same. They'll have different terms and conditions. There's so much work now that could be done in terms of just gathering that, starting the process. And actually, I mean, on the procurement and contract side, that kind of is part of the day job. But we now need to be looking at those with that eye to 2028, not just retendering now thinking, and then what happens? Actually having those conversations now.
Okay, so to summarise, basically, from both your perspectives, whatever you can do up front is going to be beneficial. Whatever you do up front, talk to as many people as you possibly can. And despite the fact that there is uncertainty, you've got to prepare. You've just got to get going now.
And I think the final point would be, and there is help out there. So we, as the suppliers, want to help. It's in our interests as well as yours. So, whatever we can do to help, bring in the specialists, bring in what you need.
Yeah, and it's that assurance partner approach, and actually we're there to provide that assurance, provide that critical friend approach is vital in these situations. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon. Finally, Alex, if someone wants to get in touch because they haven't for some reason heard of Zurich, how do they go about doing that?
So there is a Zurich Municipal website. If you go into Google, which has our kind of generic numbers, I'm on LinkedIn, easily searchable because my name is spelled unusually with the IX. Or you may have had previous contacts. We're absolutely open just for a conversation.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to an episode of our Public Finance Live podcast series, brought to you by the PF editorial team, directly from SIPFA's 2025 annual conference in Birmingham, England. You can listen to our full series of episodes on the big issues being discussed at this year's conference by searching PF Live wherever you get your podcasts.